Hello, everybody. A very good morning. My name is Amsa Venktesan, and I'm an IELTS trainer with over 5+ years' experience and have trained close to 750 students across the globe. Well, I'm going to be so excited to be talking to all of you. And in this session today, we are going to be talking all about the IELTS speaking, where we learn how to greet the examiner. All right, as you all know, this is one of the most important sessions. As you know, once again, that IELTS General plays a crucial role, and IELTS General is all about you sitting with the examiner one on one, and there's no opportunity for you to, it's a session where you really cannot skip or anything of that sort. So when you sit with the examiner one on one, I know that there will be an environment which is serious, where you don't understand what to do, how to deal with the examiner, how to deal with the stress that you have in the test. But doing the right things possible, and the tips that I'm giving you now basically will help you smoothen the entire process of your speaking test. Well, when you just talk about greeting the examiner, it's not when you just do the when you just get into it and then you just think, okay, I'm just going to greet the examiner now, and then it's done, and then I can sit as I want, like I want. No, that's not it. So greeting the examiner is all about, at every step of your answering, every step of your performance, you deal with the examiner in a certain way. Um, and that is important because you have to know that the examiner, yeah, I see that you guys can hear me. Okay, great. So at every point in your test, you have to ensure that you know the right way to talk to the examiner, you know the right way how to deal with the exam stress as well there, even though you have to answer the questions, put together what we have spoken in our Unacademy Plus and all of that. But yeah, but there are certain ways, and that's exactly how we will be doing the greeting. So just remember, greeting is not about just entering and then telling the examiner, oh yes, hi, hi, how are you, very good morning. It's not just at that point, okay? Even though that's the most important thing that we will be doing today, but that's not just the point. That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you, okay? All right, great. So, I'm doing a quick recap for you here about the speaking section for you. Uh, as you know, the speaking section, there are three sections in the speaking task, where the duration is about 11 to 14 minutes. And in the speaking test, is a face to face test between you and the examiner, even if you have opted for a computer delivered test. Both the academic and the general training candidates takes the speaking test, and the examiner who is in the room with you decides the scores, your scores at the end of the test. And that's the reason I'm telling you, greeting is important. I wouldn't say you're trying to convince the examiner by doing the greeting, or you're trying to let the examiner know, hey, look, I've done something like this. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. All that I'm trying to say is that when you try to greet the examiner, it's the level of uh, respect that you give to a person who's questioning you, and it's the kind of respect that you give when you are with the examiner. So, which shows what kind of a person you are, how sweet you are, how nice you are, or if you're very strict all the time, things like that. All right. So, for every answer that you give, the examiner will decide on the length and the time of your answers. So when they say start, you do it, and when they stop, you stop it. As simple as that, okay? So this test comprises of three major components, which is the ID check for part one, and the part two is all about the cue card, where they give you a card, and then you talk, about the card, and there'll be follow-up questions in the card. So for which they'll ask you, they'll question you for a minute, and part three is where the discussion goes for about 4 to 5 minutes, which is like the the lengthiest version, I would say. So in terms of this lengthiest section, that's where students have asked me how will I answer, because it's very difficult for me to speak. Even if they ask you a question, and even if they tell you to speak for about a minute, how will I do? That's exactly what students have asked me. And that's why we have done the inform and qualify strategy, the narrative six system strategy, and I've told you my inspirations on that topics, and we have done that in extensive, detail inside our Unacademy Plus session. So I would highly recommend you to go and check that out, which is one thing. All right. So, as you see here, there are three parts to it, where we call this the part one, the part two, and the part three of your actual speaking test. But there's another part zero, right, before these three parts. That's exactly, which we call the part zero. And that's where greeting the examiner comes into picture, right? Even before you understand all of that, we have to get into a little more details, okay? You know that this task is scored, by your fluency, by having proper lexical resources, having grammatical range and accuracy, pronunciation. The band descriptors, if you think, will not work if you just smile and greet the examiner. I don't think that's the case, and that's why I've included all of this here. Band descriptors, no matter what you do, when you greet the examiner with high respect, you smile, you answer, your fluency still plays a role. Okay, there are a lot of people who just say, I'll just get inside and I'll just, um, I'll make the examiner a little bit friendly and the examiner will be able to understand what I'm doing. No, that's not how it works. The examiner becomes a lot more friendly. I don't deny the fact, but you have to remember that fluency and coherence is crucial. Again, having proper lexical resources, which is okay. So when I say fluency and coherence, they look for your ability to not repeat and to speak fluently. So even in the part zero, which we will cover in some time, we'll still have checks on your fluency and coherence. In terms of your self correction and repetition, it still has a check based on your content. If you're adding extra sentences or if you're answering to what they've given properly. In terms of your lexical resources, they still check for your full flexibility and your precision on the topics and your ability to use idiomatic language naturally and accurately. And in terms of your grammatical range and accuracy, they still check if your grammar is fine. Even when you greet them, even in the greeting sentences, they will still evaluate, they will still look to see if your sentences makes sense grammatically, all right, and if you're able to produce consistent structures accurately. In terms of your pronunciation, they will check if you still have a full range of pronunciation, perfectly, and if your pronunciation is precise, or if you have mother tongue influence on the pronunciation, for which they will still allot a separate set of scores, even if you have MTA influence, but still, sorry, they will still provide the features. They will still give you the benefit of doubt, they will still give you the benefit of credit. And so if you think the band descriptors do not play a role when you're just trying to greet the examiner, no, that's not it. All right. Okay. In terms of your task one, okay, so I'm trying to relate to your task one because this is before the task one, or you can say part zero comes right after task one. So the evaluation is at its highest, all right, than your task two and task three, because they know that task two is a point where students get a little nervous and the pronunciation might go down, the fluency might go down a bit because you are thinking way too much on a topic and you're trying to do it right. So the examiner still knows that, or your, or I should say that your questions are at the highest when you do your task one. All right. What does the task one requires you to do? The questions that they ask you in task one are about general topics in your life. Okay, you should answer questions from your life and experience, and I think most of the time this would be answers that you can be genuine and clear about, because they might ask you about your home, about your hometown, about the festivals in your hometown, or where's your current home, do you live in a house or apartment, as you can see here. Do you live in a house or do you live in an apartment? And they ask you questions like that. And in terms of your work, probably if you're not working, or if you're at a point where you lost your job, then you can tell them what is your job. If you still choose to tell them an answer, you can tell them that you lost your job, or if you just want to tell them a made up answer, feel free to do it. Okay. Okay. And something that says, why did you choose that job, what do you do to study, what do you where do you study, and why do you study what you're studying. So these are a few questions that they ask you, and remember, these answers should still be very polite. When I say greeting, it just doesn't mean, like I said, you should smile and tell them. There is also an etiquette to answer when you're talking to the examiner, because remember, they are grading you on a test that changes your life. It's your visa test. All right, so try to be polite, try to be nice, try to be kind. At the same time, try to be very efficient when you're trying to give your answer. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer, because nobody here is judging you based on whether your answer is right or not. All right, nobody's trying to evaluate you to check if your answer is right or not, absolutely. So you just need not have any questions at all about it. But here are a few common topics that will definitely occur in task one, and I want you to make notes of all of this. Okay, in a hometown, they ask you, where's your hometown? Do you like your hometown? Do you often visit your hometown? What's your hometown like? What's the oldest place in your hometown? What is there like a foreigner to do or see in your hometown? And I want you to really go and do some practice questions on all of this. In terms of your home, where is it? Is it a house or flat? In terms of your work, what is your job? Where do you work? Why did you choose that job? Is it a popular job in your country? In terms of study, what do you study? Where do you study that? Why did you choose that subject? Is it a popular subject in your country? And things like that. All right, so for you to here are a few band descriptors that I have, and in terms of your band descriptors, to get a 7 or 8 or 9, these are a few things that I would highly recommend you to do. I want you to continue talking for band 7, and you can often have some repetition or self correction, and these are a few things that we have already seen, so you can just take a quick look at it, and because we have been repeating this again and again, so that registers in your that registers, and you know what to do the next time. All right, so if you know that pronunciation makes a serious difference in what you're trying to do, you have to remember that you have to pronounce your name the right way. And if you're making any contractions to the word, you should also be doing that properly, because that becomes a high level feature of what you're trying to do. For instance, when you're trying to talk about your name, so this tends to our part zero that we are trying to come in order to understand how to greet the examiner. If you see, in terms of the pronunciation features, we talk about individual sounds that we let the examiner know. For example, individual sounds contribute a lot when you're trying to talk about your name. So you tell the examiner your name, and then they ask you, what's your name? For example, I tell them Amsa Venktesan. I should not go run and be like Amsa Venktesan. Instead, I have to say my name is Amsa Venktesan. All right. And any syllable stresses that you're trying to do, you have to know the difference between present and produce. All right, you should know where to place the stress. Is it on the first syllable or the second syllable or the last syllable, whatever it is. Sentence stress, you have to tell them, you have to know where to place. My name is Amsa Venktesan, so you should know where to place the stress on the sentence as well. Okay. In terms of the shifting stress, you have to know where to shift in order to know where to stress. All right. I don't think it'll rain tomorrow. You're very sure about a happening or an event. All right. You have to know also about the weak sounds. What becomes weak? Can they hear my sentences? Can they hear what I'm trying to complete? What do you want to do at the weekend? What do you want to do at the weekend? Generally, do is what we make it feeble when we are trying to talk. And intonation, when we're trying to, my name is, the sentence that you're trying to create has a flow of music. That's called the intonation. Okay? All right. So, as we all know, to extend the answers, we do what's called the inform and qualify strategy. Now, coming to the main topic, which is greeting the examiner. Like I said, this is the part 0, as we all call, okay? This is right before your part 1, and there are 4 parts to the part 0 itself when we are trying to talk about greeting the examiner. Question 1, so the examiner will generally ask you 4 questions, where in terms of your question 1, they will ask you, so the examiner will first basically introduce himself or herself, and you have to respond to them with their full name when they ask you, good afternoon. So the examiner says, good afternoon, my name is Amsa. What's your full name? So remember, they're using a contraction. They're not saying, what is your full name? Instead, they're using a contraction. So you say, good afternoon, Amsa. My name's Tom. I'm using a contraction here. You can say, my name's Kim, my name's John, my name is Harry, my name is Michael. You can use whatever you want, all right? Do not use the word Miss or Mr. when you're trying to greet the examiner, because that'll look very odd. That's not also the right way to greet. Instead, you say, good afternoon, Amsa, or you can say, good afternoon, Amsa, right? Do not use Miss or Mr. when you're greeting the examiner. And do not say, my name is. Instead, say, my name's. Use the contraction, because that's another high level pronunciation strategy which you will be graded for, right? Do not pronounce your name too fast, because the examiner will find it really difficult to understand. So this is another way of being nice to the examiner. Do not be in a hurry to tell them your name. Instead, smile and tell them your name. Smile and greet them. So just tell them, my name's Amsa Venktesan, or my name's Michael Scott. So just tell them things like that, okay? Be very polite and be very kind. Smile and greet the examiner. Hello, good morning. Tell them that, okay? The next question they will ask you is, what can I call you? And you can tell them, you can call me Tim. Just call me Tim, or please call me Tim. And some tips here are, just answer to the question here. Do not extend your answers. You can also tell them, my English name is Tim. Okay? In terms of the question where they ask you, where are you from? Could you tell me where are you from? Just tell them, I'm from New Jersey. I come from New Jersey. Or you can tell them, I'm from New Jersey, which is the northeastern part of USA. Again here, do not expand your answers, because they just want to know what you're doing. This is the part 0, and there is no expansion, and do not ask the examiner for any questions that you might have. All right, so these are a few questions and tips that I have for you guys, and I hope these questions were helpful. So I would highly recommend you guys to like, share, and subscribe the video, and take a look at our Unacademy Plus. I'll see you in another session. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm just checking to see if you can all hear me.